started. Thank you for coming. And what we have tonight is for an investigation, an exploration. Is it possible for this to really happen next year, the year after, at Memphis Community Schools? It's not a vote. No decisions will be made tonight. It's for informational purposes only. And we will follow up this meeting with a survey of the entire district. So it's not something tonight, but we wanted to make sure that we were giving good information to everybody so everybody could be informed when making decisions. And we talk about year-round schooling, and we jumped. Whether or not, in some school districts, they're looking at it, neighborhood schools, Marysville, Algonac, Port Huron. We know that Croslex started it last year. They went into it in January, started the process February, and started it that summer. In some cases, that might be too quick. And when we look at what we would have to do here, and if it's a possibility, this might not be something for this coming summer, but maybe a year from now, if we decided that's the way we wanted to go. Many things to consider, and especially things like a lot of parents at this point in time have already planned for this summer. And so they might be interested in a year-round school, but it might not be able to be started because year-round school goes with a fiscal year, which would be July 1st to June 30th. And we will see, and I will show you, calendars can be very different, but that would be the year that you would have to go, or that we would go. And the fact that July is only 4 months away, one of the things we'll talk about is air conditioning and how and what you would do for that. Why are we looking at it right now? Research supports year-round schools. However, one of the reasons it's becoming big is teachers are having to use almost the entire month of December or September to review just to get kids back to the level that they were at when they left in June. And so statistics are saying that 1 year of schooling is lost by the time you enter 6th grade, just by losing or summer regression. Some kids need that stability all year round. It is made or catered to changing lifestyles, work patterns of families. Families might prefer the staggered vacations. Croslex, one of the things the families were telling me is they like the cheaper air flights because it wasn't exactly at the same time everybody else was trying to fly out of Detroit. Free breakfast and lunch for eligible students year-round. Right now, we have 52% that eat free and reduced breakfast here. And we feed them from September until June. And then year-round schooling can allow for it to go year-round instead of just part of the time. Ability for continuous learning instead of the long summer break. And the big hope is that we're going to combat that summer loss or that summer regression. It is only designed at this time, it's a new opportunity. It would be totally voluntary. It is not something, if Memphis Elementary were to offer it, it would be like Croslex has done this year, and you would have kids attending year-round or traditional calendar at the same time. And it can be done. I'll show you that in the next few slides. One of the things that we would have to have is 20 students, or a minimum of 20 students at a grade level in order to offer it. Because we would still want to keep, we usually have 3 classes a grade level, and we would still want to keep those low numbers. So we would have to have the interest to have enough to have 20. And it would go the same way if it ever went all to year-round, we would have to have 20 to offer a traditional. So that's kind of the number to keep in your head of where the minimum would be. If 8 people wanted it, it wouldn't be a possibility because we couldn't have a class for 8 students. I'd like to, but we couldn't. Year-round schools are slowly growing in the state of Michigan. We have to apply for a waiver that says you can start before Labor Day. And those waivers are being put in now. That's why most of the discussions and the information is being given out now. Because we have to apply as a district for that waiver. The state is giving them. United States-wide, a lot of places have year-round school. And I think it's 3,148 districts or counties are offering it. Michigan, not as many. I think there are 9. districts that have been doing it for quite a while. One of the biggest ones is Holt, Michigan, and Horizons Elementary have been doing it for 20 years. And at Horizon Elementary, if you look at their data, the school that has year-round school outperforms the other 3 elementaries academically. And that's the only real research, because there's mixed results out there. Not everything says year-round school is absolutely the best, and to be honest, we have to give that information. The kids take the same test, so their scores, that would be the only one, but they didn't divide and say these students were year-round and these students were, in a traditional calendar. So even MEP scores can't be used as a good indicator at this point because they didn't differentiate them. So we have mixed results. They do know that it is great for kids that struggle, kids that have special needs, or come from families of 2 working parents, or low-income families. And that those are the areas that they're seeing a lot more of the progression or working. In a traditional school calendar, you have to go by how many days you were in school in 2009-10. And that's the minimum number of days you have. And then you have to have 1,098 hours of instruction. So in a traditional calendar, we have student days of 176. We go from September to June. You have the long summer, and school always starts the Tuesday after Labor Day. If you go to a year-round calendar, you still have 176 days of instruction, but the calendar can be used to support learning throughout the year. Croslex schools chose to go 4 days a week in the summer and have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Utica schools, or Warren Consolidated Schools, chose to take the entire month of July off, and they have an 11-month year-round, so that they only have the 1 4-week in July, and then they spread the rest of the days out. There's nothing that says your year-round calendar has to be this way or that way. Sometimes we say if the state would mandate a year-round calendar, it would be easier for everybody, because one of the struggles is going to be if we only go to the elementary school and you have junior high and elementary, you're not going to want 2 kids on 2 different calendars. So that's one of the struggles to start the program that I would tell you, is that at this point is only elementary. And so if you have younger children, and it would be a decision each year. So remember, July starts a new year. So your decision, if you say, I'm going to try the year-round school, and then a year later, as long as we have the traditional, it could go back, or vice versa. So each year will be a new year, from July to June. Students are in school with students following a traditional calendar 143 days. So 34 of the days are different. So when people say it's a small community, I don't want the kids just to have these 20 kids be with just these 20 kids the whole time. There's 143 days you would be with everybody like they are right now. And then I think it's 34 days on the other side. Most often seen in elementary, few districts are offering junior high, and I believe Croslex on their 2nd year is going up to 8th grade, and it was well accepted. They have a few more to offer though, or a few more students are about twice our size. So that makes it a little bit easier for them than it might be for us, because our size may be a problem. They both have 176 days, 82 off for holidays, 143 overlapping. The year-round calendar offers the 176 days over all 12 months, and most of the calendars also have a 4 to 5 week enrichment opportunity. Some of the schools are offering like Lego robotics, and instead of during that time period, especially if kids, and this is where the 2 working parents comes in, there is the child care where they offer enrichment programs during the school year, not on all the vacations, but that kids can come into, and that there would be a fee for that day. So that's what they are looking at, that you can have other enrichments. We're looking that we're on the lower end, the kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. 5th grade could happen, we could consider it, but we would have to restructure how we do our 5th grade, because you would have to go back to 1 class teaching all subjects. So that was one there. Classrooms would be determined by number of students, and I told you you would have to have 20. If you didn't have 20, then it would be next to impossible for us to do it. We look at the funding piece of it, we all know that the state has cut, so we have to have cost neutral. We do not, there's not money in the budget for if year-round schooling is going to cost a lot more money, that's not something that we would be able to do at this time. If they increase money, or if they give grants out for year-round schooling, those are ways that we could take them up on that. Transportation, we would have to add those 33 days of transportation. We have a large district. How many more bus runs would that be? Something that would have to be investigated. And if the kids weren't coming, depending on how many, could you drop a few runs to offset the runs that you're adding those 33 days? Something you would have to look at. Food service, told you, we're currently running it during a school year, you'd have 33 more days. Would you need a full entire staff? Would there be ways that they do more of the picnic type, lunch types, where you do not, those 33 days, have to bring in a full food service? Special education needs, there's a lot of, and I know that even when you're looking at the early childhood developmental delay programs, that there's a lot of regression during the summer, and a lot of times the parents need to take their students to different programs. So there's one that we might be able to do that would be beneficial. Air conditioning, state of Michigan right now is in the process of looking for grants to where they're saying we are valuing year-round schooling, so if you are looking towards year-round schooling, you might be able to apply for the grant, which would be the purchase of the rooftop units and the installation. We then have to figure out what's the cost of running the air conditioning in those classrooms, because they're finding if you have year-round schooling, you do need air-conditioned buildings. So that's one of the things that would have to be figured out cost-wise, to go with that. One of the things that we have is a summer school program and an after-school tutoring program. Because of transportation, we have very small numbers that use both programs. That money could be used to offset some of the expenses of year-round schooling, because those that want the summer school, could have it to where you're going year-round. As far as selection of students go, parents would fill out an application for year-round schooling. Final decisions would be, made by the district. Students would be selected early May. Parents would be notified, and then if we have more students than teachers, you would employ a lottery system to get the number, that you would need. Like I said, during most calendars, they start in July, but the more you research it, you find out that it's custom to the area that wants the program. And the calendars are negotiated, so therefore, you have to come up with a common interest or a common way that meets the needs of parents, students, and the rest of the staff. Right now, I told you the air conditioning was a problem. We do have it in the library, the computer lab, and depending about the number of classrooms, you might be able to air condition one wing and use that wing for year-round school and separate out the rest for the traditional. We did, when we did the renovations, make all of the unit ventilators air conditioning ready. So there's nothing that needs to be done in the building, it would only be the rooftops. And the other part about summer is outdoor education is then possible. And a lot of them are doing their gardening units, their agricultural units. Getting out more in the summertime is a lot easier, especially this winter. Over the summer, students are transported the same as during a traditional year. Some runs might have to become a little bit longer, depending on, if we had 4 grade levels with 20 at a grade level, it was 80 students, that's really only 2 buses. One going this way and one going that way. So maybe a little bit longer. Parents could drive their kids to school, but the one beautiful part was the kids would still be eligible to ride them to enrichment activities. So even on the off time, students could ride the school buses into enrichment activities. At least that is what they are doing across Lex right now. It seems to be working very well. I work year-round, Mr. Goodme works year-round, and the secretary in each building work year-round. So there's no cost for administration and for the building secretary, because we do currently work year-round schedules. So that was a plus. Students in elementary school, a teacher is certified to teach all subjects. So therefore, you could have highly qualified teachers in phys ed, computers, art, and music on those 34 days. They could join others in those specials, or you could have different specials for those 34 days if you get into some of the other things, science exploration, gardening, agriculture, whatever. Band would have to be available, which is only 5th grade, during a traditional year because the teacher's the same on both sides of the street. So we would have to go that way. And then we would have to investigate how to provide the best services for anybody with an IEP or a special ed need. Title I support would be available year-round. Title I support is supplemental to basic educational needs. Many of the parapros that we have here could be offered that right to work year-round and not only service in the summer but also in the winter under Title I support. Students would have the same use of technology. In some cases it might increase because you would have smaller numbers using the technology that we have, and especially on those 34 days. Report cards, progress notes could remain the same. Year-round school can be divided into thirds the same way that we have our school year divided into thirds. It would just be like we're starting in July to go to Port Huron. Some of us are going through Richmond to get to Port Huron. The rest of us might be going to Yale to get to Port Huron. In June, we're all going to get to Port Huron. But just the way the year is divided, it would be the same curriculum, same progress notes, same standards divided into 3. And that's what you have right now. Intersessions are what they call the times that you're not in school. And so one of the things that we have, and we've been working very hard to have a 4-star rated daycare system. And so with this daycare system, we can expand it, and you don't have to have necessarily, we can run those enriched classes through the daycare program, and it does not have to be, we would not necessarily have a certified teacher in those enrichments, but it could be in various degrees by art, by sports, by any type of a theme, and bring people in for those different times. Daycare option would be available, and once again, if they receive free or reduced lunch, they'd be able to eat their meals here, theme-based programs, and they have a fee per day per students. In Croslex, the fee is $10. I'm not sure per day for that fee. So just to give you a notice of that. And then that's pretty much what the definition is, what you're looking at, and now it would be any questions that you might have that we can either find an answer to or be able to answer through.
Would they have like,
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, and I'm sure others are, what is the calendar here? What does it look like?
I should probably hand it out. I made 50 copies, so if we go with 1 per family, and I can make more if I need, right, Joanna? There are 3, what I'm passing out to you right now is there are 3 calendars here. The circled days are the days of student attendance. And the first one is Memphis's calendar for this school year. Then we have the second one, if it has July. The second one on the back is Croslex's calendar for this year. And the last one is Warren Consolidated calendar. Once again, calendar is no, this does not mean we need more. We'll get some more. Oh, here's the company. Just gonna run a few more. So if you're looking at it, the circled days are the days of student attendance. Those are the 176. They're going to get some more for you. And that's just 3 different calendars. So if that lets you kind of see how they have broken down the year in 2 different other districts. But what I'm hearing is every district has a little bit different calendar. They do it more than their needs. Lenny?
wouldn't it make more sense to have if you had year-round school to have longer breaks, like longer 4th of July, like a week, or, I mean, is that even an option, or?
You mean,
Like when they have like vacation, like when they have like Christmas break or Thanksgiving break, the year-round students have longer breaks than the non.
so go 45 days and have 3 weeks off
Yeah.
for Christmas, go 45 days, have 3 weeks off for
I don't know if that's an
Easter.
option, I just.
Those are all options. I guess what I'm saying, some districts do 45 days off, 15 days off. And that, they do incorporate them with holidays.
Yeah, okay.
And so if you look at them, it's kind of like that on those calendars. It's not exact because you also want to have time off for Thanksgiving. And you want to have time, there's some other periods in there that you want to have time on, so it's not an exact, and I think
Right.
that's where it gets down to. But anything is possible,
Okay,
you know, on
nice.
making it.
And it's still an 8 to 3 day.
It's still the same school day. If you, remember that the requirement is at least 176 days with 1,098 minutes.
So that's
So-
still just a rough.
So no, yeah, so no, well, that's what you have to have by the
I
state.
meant the day itself is still like 8 to 3, not like a 10 to 2 or all that is part.
Correct, no, I mean, and that would, everybody is just doing what their current day is. But you can't reduce the days, so I guess that's why, and if you go with the days and the minutes, that's, because that's what we are at right now. With 176 days and 1,098 minutes, that's what we have to have, and that's what the schedule is based on. So that's where it works out. So I can't see it being different. Some people have said, could you start it later? Could the summer program start later? And I suppose that would also always be an option, but that would become a negotiating. Right. So that's what I did. You can't hear anything. Sorry about that.
So you're saying that after trying it with the elementary, that there's potential to take it across the street? Or is that not even an optional if it works out? Because if we're talking about retention in children in elementary, the retention, when they get across there, they're hormonal and they're everything else. It's horrible. And their retention is shorter over there. So if it works out here, are we going to implement it over there?
Are we definitely going to? I can't tell you that.
What is
It's
it-
something
is it
definitely considered.
involved? Yeah.
Yes, I would actually even consider it in high school. When you get into the junior high and the high school, it becomes an issue with athletics, just because of the different sports seasons. In junior high athletics, the seasons are short enough where you can usually make it work. In high school, if you're looking at the calendar, the tournaments are kind of what you base everything on. Kids will be in school for the tournaments. What it turns out to be is for the beginning of the seasons, they would be in school for a couple weeks when everybody's practicing, so you might have some families traveling, you'd miss out some practices. But I could see it definitely happening in the junior high down the road.
Does anybody do it, or?
The first school that's gonna do it is Croslex in our area, and they'll be doing it this coming July.
Just through eighth grade though, right?
Just through eighth grade
So
this
there's
year.
never been a district that has
There
gone
is a
full
district.
like K through 12.
Not in the, okay.
I mean, I'm just
I think
curious.
that's an investigation that I did not really Google that exact question, and I have not asked that. We can probably find that answer out. I know that in a lot of other states, K-12 does year-round schooling. I
I'm
don't
just curious,
know,
there's one over here and a couple over there. I'm just-
and that's gonna be the dilemma of getting started.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
you
like.
The answer
I mean,
to
is
that
it just
question,
normal, just
Beecher
elementary?
Flint is a year-round.
Beecher Flint,
consult-
thank you.
Beecher Flint is a total district year-round.
And how long have they been doing that?
This is their first year. They're also an at-risk district,
Okay.
so I know, but I talked to the secretary last week over there, and she said everybody is very pleased with how it has been.
And they would adjust it, I'm assuming, sports schedules and things like that around?
I would assume so.
But I think that one of the things when you're looking at an investigation is if the community, there has to be support from the community, there has to be support from the staff working at the school, and I had a lot of kids tell me today they don't want to come. It was the best thing, and I don't want to come to school year round. I get your point, but, yeah.
That there is, the Title I support in the year-round calendar.
It could be all year.
So, I'm just, yeah, so the increase in the traditional school year during the summer, I'm seeing there's no summer school program.
Correct.
Available, those would still be available to the children in the traditional calendar, or they would not be?
I think that there's no definite answer to that, because Title I support is supplemental too. So if we're here, there would be no reason why we couldn't run it like we run a summer school for those kids.
So if you were a person whose child needed that summer support and you did not choose summer year-round school, then your child would not be afforded that same.
No, I'm not, what I'm saying is I don't see why we couldn't figure out some type of summer school because we're here.
Okay.
There, once again, it's a supplemental support, so it has to be in addition to. So that's where, that we have to figure that out. But to be very, very honest, we have only been having, a summer school program that we're running for 4 or 5 weeks, 4 days a week from 8 until noon. And if we get 38 students, we're lucky. And so we're spending a lot of money for that, and is there a better way to use that money? Sure.
So from what I'm hearing and understanding, the main benefit of this year-round school is the retention and the review that takes place in September.
The main thing that we are hearing is that you are combating the learning loss that occurs when you take June, July off and August off, or 9 or 10 weeks off, and you come back. It then takes, and I think if you talk to most elementary teachers, they are going to tell you that they review the entire month of September and then get started on their new year in October. Kelly, agree? That's the, look at anybody else around here. And I'm not sure. Now, the whole thing is that studies are mixed. So I am not going to tell you this is the best thing since sliced bread, because I don't think enough schools have done it. You've got one in Flint Beechers, they're saying it's good, it looks good. And in some cases, do you wait another year and see what they've all learned and give us a year to keep saying, okay, what do we want to exactly do for Memphis? Because remember, we have to make sure it doesn't cost any more money.
There's very little research, and the research does show that there's very little, there's an insignificant testing score increase in kids from year-round to traditional year. And you can barely find any research.
Right, because they never split the kids.
Yeah. so
They never split the test
It's hard to
scores.
say that there's really a benefit from one week to the other, except for your retention in September and your wasted time, which if there's kids who regress over a 4-week period, or, there's kids who regress over a 2-week period, or
That's
a
true.
4-week period. So you're coming back from 4 weeks and you're reviewing for a week, you're reviewing after a 2 week, you know what I mean? So either you're reviewing for 3 weeks in September, or you're reviewing throughout the year, 4 days here, 4 days here, when you're coming back from break, so.
And that could be true. I cannot say that it's not. We are using most of the information from Croslex because from talking to parents, administration, and their scores, they are finding it extremely successful. And that, I think they are the pilot program for this area and where most of us are going to get our information. And so I think that the only other one was, like I said, Horizons Elementary is probably the only true data that I could find that is comparing apples to apples, saying that the year-round school in our district outperforms the traditional ones on a yearly basis. And you're right, there's very little out there because they have never separated the students.
They've had some that have gone to for 3 years and gone back to the traditional year. Out in Nevada and Utah, they've had districts who have switched, and after 3 years found that there was no difference, and so they did go back to the traditional year.
And this is why you are asking parents, because parents are going to make the best choice based on their situation for their kids. And that's why no one wants, it would be voluntary. It could be, you would be signing up for a year, because once the classes are made, it could go back. I do not believe, unless it became mandated by the state, that it would be ever a mandate, unless the only time that I could see it happening was if you had 72 kids that wanted year-round and 14 that wanted traditional. You know, I mean, but I don't think going into it that it would be, I would not consider it to be a mandate because it would be optional, it would be voluntary.
How would that look from changing if you decided this year to not do it? And then, so you could just start your child in July, like, because you said it would be optional each year, so if you just kind of get off in June and you fly right into that July of the next school year, so.
You could, or it could, or you could say, okay, I wanted to do that, but nope, I want to go back to a traditional. Because each year is, as long as you're going July to June, you would still have 1 year. So, you know, somebody asked me about open house. I thought that was really a smart, you know, question. You know, when would you have the open house? Would you have one for year-round and one for traditional? Or would you have it at the traditional September, even though the kids had been here for 8 weeks in that middle program? I mean, so there's all kinds of things that when you have, you know, we are very set. I mean, it's a long time that it's been a September to June. You know, it's been a long time. So I think you're very right. There's not a ton of research that says it is the best, but the research that we are seeing or that, you know, we are getting is saying that there's some real benefit in these days to looking at more of a year-round program instead of the long summer break. And I have some of the same questions, you know, and exactly where to get them, I'm not sure.
The question revolves around your IEP kids.
Well, I told you, that's the one question that I
So
do not know all the
you're
answers.
looking into the support as far as for those kids that would be the occupational therapy, whether those services could be contracted through the RESA.
I think anything is possible, but you're looking at, in some cases with that, it can be these services are provided during a traditional year. If you would want these services,
Because if you
it would
don't
be more.
have enough of those kids, are they going to be told they need to do them in traditional? If there's not enough, say,
I don't know a definite answer to
resource
that.
from
I don't know a definite
cost
answer to that.
efficiency here.
Yeah, I don't know that, and that's, what we're talking about now is if you have an individualized educational plan for special ed needs. You know, would those be serviced during a traditional calendar year when, because we contract with RESA for like occupational therapy or physical therapy, they're on a traditional year, would we have to be providing those services during the traditional year? It could be. You need your mom to come here?
Sure, I just have a question. So, and I know it was through 4th grade, and I know this has already been answered, I'm just answering it in my head. But you have a student that would be heading into 5th grade in the fall. This wouldn't be something that would affect them because 5th grade, you said, would have to be reorganized if it was to go to a full 2-year round? Or is that something where, let's say you have a child who's heading into 5th grade in the fall, would they be able to start, let's say we, you know, depending on what the school says, let's say rhetorically the school says, hey, we want to do it now. Does that student who's heading into 5th grade be now, you know, like, okay, you can't start school in July because you were in 5th grade? Or they have to wait until that traditional year since they're heading into the grade that would have to be restructured?
I think that need or want would have to determine that. If all of a sudden 32 5th grade students said, we really would like to see this before they go over to junior high, then I think that would tell us we need to look at this.
Okay.
You know, I once again, after this meeting, a survey's gonna go out. And hopefully, unlike other surveys, people will give their opinions and we will get more than 30 back. Because this is what we need from the community to have these questions and how many would like it or whatever, and then compile it. And then that's going to lead more into the next step of this evaluation in our investigation. And is it even possible for a next school year? Or is it going to take in this community and this district, just because of financial needs, another year to make this decision and say, okay, you know what, we're pushing too hard to start in July of this year because a lot of people have made plans, they've made summer vacations, they have already done things for this upcoming summer. So do we put it away and say, we're going to investigate and be doing all of these things during the course of one more year and start 1 year from now? And that's also a very good option.
Do you ever have an idea if this will be a mandatory program?
I don't, from the state,
State or you?
it won't be from me. I can guarantee you in that. But I don't, my opinion is I think you're gonna see it mandated from the state probably in 3 to 5 years. But there's new elections going on this year. So I'm not so sure it's an election year. You know, if I were to say with what I know right now, is this something that you could see for Michigan schools in the next 3 to 5 years? I would say yes, I think it is. And in some ways that would make it easier, you know, to go in that direction. The only reason that you would want to jump that gun is to get the grants for air conditioning, because that's going to cost about $140,000 just to put the units up on top of this building. And one more time.
Do you have any feedback from your teaching staff and support staff as their field on this? Is it going to be an optional for them to volunteer, or what's the feedback that you come on?
I think that it is so new, and like anything else, you have lots of questions, lots of doubts, lots of pluses, but I think that pretty much from staff is they do not have enough information to make
Because I
good
know
decisions.
Boswell made it an optional for the
It would
staff.
definitely have to be optional for the staff. Then the question comes, if enough staff don't want to do it, what do you do? So I have 150 parents that want year-round schooling, but I only have 2 teachers that want to do it. You know, what do you go there? But once again, it's early in the investigation, and I think staff is doing just as much investigating as to, you know, how will this happen? My children at home are on one schedule, I'm on another schedule, how do I make that work? Or I already have plans, you know, made for next summer, could we put this off for another year? And I think that some of those are very well-founded, and, you know, you don't want to push something too quick, because you do want to make sure that it is the best for your district. But on the other hand, if there's enough that says we need to look forward and go forth for next year, you know, is that where we go?
How are we gonna mix these kids together in the fall?
We're not. They would stay with their group of 20. That's their class from July through June. They'll have other activities. They'll have recess, they'll have lunch, they might have specials. But as far as the teaching, their class group is whatever group they're in. That's their year group, just like right now.
And I think, you know, which one?
You're gonna give them an A on the
They're okay not to come on Friday.
You know what, it's kind of funny you say that, because one of the things that they were talking is the jealousy of some of the kids when they don't have to go to school and other kids do. You know, it's like.
All right, so financially, you're talking, if this were to go into play, is the junior high going to be offering the summer school program that they have in years past this year?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Even
because it's
for
a
the new
different funding source.
upcoming fifth graders?
Right, this will not change the support in the junior, senior high.
No, that's a whole different funding source.
Well, I just want to make sure that was still there.
It's still.
I'm out of this school, I'm sorry. I graduate this year.
So you had mentioned that you're going to have programs on the days off. Try to have programs for them both to go, but a paying program for the other child. But yet that's still going to be a funner activity than taking my child.
More fun.
I understand, but the whole thing is it's just like everything else. How do you deal with it?
Where's our support? Yeah, like, how are we, if we choose it, and maybe it's not me, I know it's not me, but, you know, what if, you know, and how do we?
I think that the one thing is that different things are going on in different classrooms every day. And this class might be having more fun than this class. And so the kids will tell me, I want to prove for my teacher today. But then when she's doing something that's more fun the next time, then we want to go back to that class. You know, so I mean, I think it's there. But I think kids are a sponge. And I think they need to learn too that it's a different schedule. You know, I mean, I think kids will understand there's 176 days that you're going to do work. There's 176 days that they are. I think we have to educate them. You know, but and I've talked to a lot of parents, I would love to see Odyssey of the Mind, Imagination Destination, Lego Robotics. You know, those programs, we don't have time, or we don't have bus transportation to take kids home. That could be something that you might be able to offer because the buses are running, and so kids could come for them. Yes, sir?
Yeah, that, is this date size, is this written in stone? Because I was thinking about, like, what about the children that does the 4-H programs during the fair time?
And that's where, when I say it's optional for parents, when you say, if the state is going to do it, I don't know for sure whether they're going to mandate it. The question was, what was my opinion? And I said, that my thoughts would be, I think that it might be heading in that direction, but it's an election year, so I don't know for sure. But as far as anything that we are doing, that's where the parents come in. We're at 4-H, no, we want them.
Community as well, where there's, so we do our schedules.
But that's where the families are gonna choose, because it's optional. It's not mandated. And that's you know your family and your family you know best. And if it's an agricultural community that we're all taking part in 4-H, and a survey comes back that 95% leave the calendar alone, guess what? We're gonna leave the calendar alone. It's just something that we feel that this is a new way of looking at a school year, and you are seeing it all around. And we felt, and Brett and I talked about it a lot, that we need to make sure that we are keeping up with what is most current and possibly best for kids here, the same as every other district. And so, we're looking at it. Cindy?
In the winter, the kids can't get out when they're off. I know over Christmas we had extra days off. My kids were bummed. They were ready to come back to school. They can't go outside, it's cold. What do? They sit there and they play those stupid digital games and texting and all this crap. Where at least in the summer, I can say out, in. But now it's too cold. I mean, even recess, they haven't been outside here in how 2 months? These kids are not getting outside in the winter, and now you want to take their summer away when they can at least
But if you look
get
at that
kicked out.
calendar, it's not a whole lot different in the winter than you have off right now. You have some September time off, you have some March time off.
Well, I think it was like April and that, and seeing here you got the mud, you know what I mean? I don't know. To me, that's where I get my, because I can't kick them out and they need it. And I know my kids, they have to go out, they need the.
And that's why it's a personal choice.
But the benefit is too with the smaller, what we see happening is probably 20 kids in a grade level. When you have the smaller groups here, when the other students aren't here those 33 days, 34 days, you have an entire building that you can use instead of going outside. You can take them to the gym. You can come in a cafeteria that's not being used for lunch. You do have a lot.
Outside is outside.
Obviously, in the winter, we're not going outside right now. When we have 450 kids in this building, you don't have a lot of open space. But we would have some more options like that. But yeah, you're right. There's going to be times that you can't do outside activities.
My kids do the summer school, but it's only a short time and it's a couple hours, and if I miss it, it's not considered an absent, counting against their curriculum for the state. If they miss, like we take off for the Good Fair, they take that week off. Well, I don't feel bad, but if I was to pull them out of class for 5 days, I don't pull them out for,
That's why it's so important that people fill out those surveys and send them in so that you guys can all sit down and read material and make an educated decision by people's written opinions of it, correct?
Do the school have to stay the same?
Yes.
Same numbers?
This would take away then your option for like teacher choice, right? If, say kindergarten, I'll just do something because I know their names, like Brandy would have to be the year round and Amy would have to be, or vice versa, right?
Who knows? If it was voluntary on the teaching staff, who knows? But you're right, all of the teachers are highly qualified to be teaching what they're teaching. Yeah, and from year to year, it changes. It seems like from year to year, it's changing as far as grade level and what's happening anyways, just by having, that our one small group is causing it has been very strange in 38 years that I've been here. I've never seen a group of 54 go through. And it started in kindergarten and is holding 54. All the rest are 76 to 85. And so that's 2 teachers as compared to 3. So every year, they'll be in 4th grade, 3rd grade next year, you'll see a big change in staff again. because of that. Unless we all go out and adopt third graders.
Question, you said it has to be 20 students in order to do it. So what happens if you have 20 for kindergarten, 20 for first, not enough for second, and then enough for third, fourth? Would you still run the program, you just wouldn't have that one grade?
Correct.
Okay.
And I think that if you're piloting it, you know, I mean, and that's what you're looking at this as, the first year you do anything, it would become a pilot program. Because there are going to be, you know, in any new program, you learn from who's doing it. And I think it's wonderful, and I thank her for sharing the Flint Beecher story, because that sure is a way that we can now get over there and get some information from them. And that's, you know, it's an information gain, you know, as we find it out, so yes.
So is that the way I can support it? Because I have a fifth grader and a junior and a freshman. So for me, it's not really an option as much as I think something like that. So by doing a survey, that's my way of.
You can support it by doing the survey, and you can say, as a fifth grader, I would love to see it happen for 1 year.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, I mean, that's-
As much as I'm resistant, because, you know, we all like our summer, we like to sleep in, it's our time, but the kids really need it. Like, even the first 2 days they were off, they need to be in school, they need to be doing something other than video games. Because my kids still play video games in summertime. It's not like they're free from the TV in the summertime. You know, they'll decide to come down, bring the TV and Xbox and the computer and, you know, everything else. So, I just,
Okay.
Is there a way to test the kids that are in the year-long program to the standard or the traditional year?
Oh, sure.
By the end of like your first period, you know, you say you're gonna pilot it, you're gonna test it out, if it goes, it flies. Is there a way to see that those kids did?
We could have our data. I mean, and I think everybody here knows how much data you get every year, especially in the elementary school, from Gibbels testing to math to reading to your the SRIs to the DRA scores and whatever. And I think those scores, as long as you are using them, they're all trained, they're all given or delivered the same way. You would have MEP scores because they're all taking them in May. So it didn't really matter when you started, July or September. It will be online testing now. That will be happening in May. So those scores would show. Oh, it was, okay.
With testing the separate classes, there's so many factors involved in that anyway, because what if only the kids that struggle all the time anyway, go to the year-round school, they may improve, but they may not still test as high as all the kids that weren't struggling in the traditional school.
But you would look at months of improvement.
Okay.
I mean, that's one way you can do it.
The kids.
Nope, you're looking at months of improvement and scores.
Yeah, that's.
Statistically, I think you would be able to do it because we have a small group that we could keep a very good target at.
I was just, what Sarah had said about, Sarah, right?
Yeah.
About testing, I also think, I'm wondering if you could develop a tool for the teachers, for like if there's gonna be a year-round teacher and then the traditional teachers, develop some sort of tool for their own, you know, data, like whether they've noticed an improvement or if they kind of can talk about some stuff, because I think the teachers are really like your best indicator of noticing the difference between, you know, they've been doing traditional school year for their entire careers and now they're going to go switch to that. That's going to be your best indicator of is this working.
Correct.
Sometimes it's not even going to be the testing scores.
Well, they would be doing the same test. Remember when you said you have the same curriculum?
Right.
So a DRA, you come into first grade, whether you come in July or you come in September, you're at a 4 or a 6, and by the time you leave, it needs to be 18.
Right.
So they're going to be doing what they're trained to do, and if the kids aren't making as much progress, they would be the first ones to say, this isn't working.
Right. So
And you're right,
they're gonna be
they
your
do
best
know.
indicators of-
Are
Okay.
the Lux teachers still paid the same thing?
Yes.
So they're really taking the hit.
They're
No,
working.
no, I mean, let's look at it as a person that goes to work. They don't have to get up for 2.5 months. Now they have to. I mean, I know that, but they're still going to school. I don't know. I just, you know.
176 days of students.
33 more days they're doing.
No, they're still both going 176 days. It's just different days.
Those teachers will be off at the same time their students are off the extra time.
Correct. Well, not really, because teachers have to put in more days for professional development. So teachers definitely have to be here, but those would be common days in some, you know, that you have. So,
That's a good question.
well, then, yeah, well, and it makes sense. But no, they're not, the contractual piece would be the same for teachers because you still have a contract. So, still not, yeah.
You had mentioned about comparing apples to apples, and then you mentioned about wanting to get information from the school that's going year round. When that is an at-risk inner city school, which we are neither.
Right. But Crosswalk says, I was saying for how they're running in the high school, because we don't know of any other high schools.
But, yeah, again, that high school is an inner city at-risk high school.
Right.
You would talk about this high school, I have a son in high school, I send my son to Vale Hay. So they aren't gonna be doing that with Glenn.
Right.
You know, I just think, I just think that the other.
But that's why it's parent optional. It's not a mandated program.
For now.
Well, from me, from us.
It will never be,
We're not,
yeah, I don't see it ever being a mandate from us, like the district itself. It'll always be an option. If we can run both and have both buildings or both times a year full, that'd be awesome to have that option for every parent. I don't ever see it coming from us saying, we're gonna do this year-round schooling, and that's, everybody's gotta do it, or you're not gonna go to school here.
Well, you said if there was enough kids that went for the
If
odd
we
year,
had
then you were gonna.
90% of them going to summer school or year-round, then yes.
Now,
Then
you
we would have
still
to
gonna
look
Do
at
I
it.
think that would
the
happen?
summer help out school, the program you had there for 2 hours?
the what?
That, are you still gonna offer, if you do the all year round, are you still gonna offer the summer school where they only come 3 hours or whatever it
It
is?
may look different, but it would be something.
Okay.
Okay, just a few more.
Okay, so let's say this doesn't go through. Have you ever thought about moving up the daycare more like, the information that you're talking about, doing that anyway for summer, for kids who are like camp this week? Even, even the break is higher. Because for me to go out and pay the YMCA or and travel all over to take a child to an all-day daycare that's more exciting, it's costing me.
It's more
$400
programming
a
enrichment.
week. So, if Memphis offered that, it would be awfully nice to just be able to bring them to school and have more stimulating activities.
Well, I think that all comes down to numbers. If, you know, you can do a lot if you had 20 here that had transportation, and that's where I think the enrichment programs work on the year-round school versus what you're talking about, because I'm not sure that we would get enough to support the program. If I thought that I could start a Legos Robotics and that I could pay people to come in and I would have 25 kids that it's cost effective because it's a parent pay program and run them in the summer, then, but it doesn't work because people, without the transportation, then that's a problem. And then the cost gets too high for what you can do. But it's always a possibility. I mean, we can look into that. That's good.
We know that our special needs at-risk gets better through this year round. Is there a set number, if you're only offering one grade, what's to say we could have a whole lot of special needs kids in that one grade? For one teacher, are we then looking at putting careful in that class also to offset?
I think that would always be an issue that you have to look at and balance because you're not going to have an offset.
Because we know the research is showing right now that for our kids are at risk, that this is beneficial. Whereas we could end up having more parents that have those.
I think the numbers would have to increase dramatically to have it become a major problem.
That kinds of kids in one classroom, general, let's spread them out.
I think we have, right, you would have to be careful that you're making balanced rooms, but I'm not sure that we have the numbers to support the problem that you're thinking you might have at a grade level. At a grade level. Let's take one more question, and then thank you all for coming. If you have any other questions, I'm going to hope to get the survey out prior to Easter. How many weeks right now? Is that 4 weeks? before Easter vacation, that we will have it, and anybody that has any questions that say, you know, I wish I would answer this, or would you please pay attention to this, please email them, send them in with your child or something, that we can put them in that folder, because then I can add those things to that survey. You know, so that we can make sure that when we get the survey rights back, at that point in time, we would then either have another informational meeting, which might be one of the survey questions, what would you like us to do with these results? Have another informational meeting, develop a committee to study the results and see where we want to go from here, and have it up, teachers and parents and the administration and some school board members, and sit down and discuss those results. Because once again, whether we do it next summer, a year from now, 2 years from now, I think it has to come with support of staff, it has to come from support of parents and the school board and administration. And if any of those pieces aren't working, then it's not going to work, and we're too small to not have them all working. So I really thank you for coming out in the cold tonight and getting good information, and hopefully you can pass some good information along on Facebook and let everybody know that it was not a vote, and so the no votes on Facebook don't count. That's all, Mr. What, your question? Oh, there's contractual language for that, so you can't go 50 in a row. It all depends on what grade level. 28 for. You could, but you're still capped. I mean, you are, the class base loads, that's where the lottery comes in.
You could possibly have 2 classes, 2 classes.
Just go adopt more kids, bring more kids here, and it won't be a problem. Come on.